2 more minutes and we'll get started. 2 more minutes.
Good afternoon. For the sake of time, we'll go ahead and get started. We just want to first thank you all for joining us today for this webinar. Alabama's House and Senate Democrats realize these are unprecedented times, and there is no doubt that COVID will leave a tremendous impact moving forward. As such, our members wanted to create an opportunity to connect the small business community with some experts in these fields so that they can provide the resources to be utilized to support business owners in Jefferson County. Before we get started, I want to thank the Jefferson County delegation, whose names are on the screen. We appreciate your hard work in helping to organize this event and engage your constituents to make it possible. We appreciate your help. And we also want to take the time to thank our panelists for taking the time out of, we know, your tremendously busy schedules right now to come and share with us. Now we'll get started, and I'll introduce the panelists and give them the mic. But one note to begin, so we'll have an open Q&A at the end of this when the presenters are done. However, if questions come up from the panelists, feel free to use your chat box. We'll get an array of all the questions sent to us, and so we'll start from there, asking the questions once the Q&A portion begins. And so now we will turn things over to our first panelist, who is Trevor Small, and he is an S&P tax accounting.
Good afternoon. My name is Trevor Small. This is actually our old name. Our new name is Simplified Management Products. We're an accounting firm. We handle all accounts, all small business and mid-sized businesses, any accounting related tasks. So payroll, sales tax, consulting, bookkeeping, tax planning, anything that's related to managerial financial accounting. Let's see. So do you want me to go through some of these slides?
Yes,
Or
thanks for, we're turning it over to you now. So it's your part of the presentation, the information you feel necessary for these small businesses and the resources that you feel that they need to know about.
So I've been on a few of these webinars now, and there's been a few things that I've seen consistent that a lot of business owners are having a trouble with. One thing is determining what their loan calculation is. The other thing is trying to differentiate between what an employee and a contractor is. So one thing to just keep in mind right now in this period, from yesterday to April 10th, the only people who can apply for these PPP loans are people with one or more employees. So it's very important that we know that, because the barbers and beauticians and the gardeners and the people who just receive money and just pay out money, they cannot apply yet. They can't apply until April the 10th. We do not know that criteria yet. At least it has not been released that I've seen as of probably an hour ago, but that can change, as we can tell from previous instances dealing with the SBA application. So let's just keep an eye out for that. The other thing is an employee and a contractor relationship. So I'm going to kind of define that just a little bit. An employee relationship is someone whom you give a W-2 and withhold payroll taxes out of their payroll check and the means in which you pay them. An employee, also you dictate and tell them how, when, and the way in which you want the job being handled. A contractor relationship is someone who you just need somebody just to do the job, and you pay them to do the job. So a lot of my clients and other clients on some of these other webinars have mixed up that relationship. So if you are not withholding taxes, and if you are not filing Form 941 every quarter or making federal tax deposits, that person is not an employee. That is just a contractor. So I want you all to keep PPP loan. It's very important that you have the supporting documents for anything you put on that application. As far as my experience dealing with this PPP loan and the calculation of it, the bank is giving limited guidance on it. So it's very important that you know your numbers and know your payroll numbers. So know your payroll numbers, have supporting documents. So like your payroll reports, if you're using a payroll system to process payroll, it's very important that you have your 941s from last year, because they're asking for that as supporting documents, as well as, depending on your bank, of tax return or financial statements. So I just want to encourage all of you all, please have your documents and supporting documents together, because that will help your loan go through faster. So the less questions and the less back and forth with your bank or your loan officer will help speed up your process. I don't know when they're dispersing the money. That has not been communicated to me. None of my clients have said they received any of their money. So from my understanding, this thing is being rolled out. So the hope is to get the money to all the people who have applied and that qualify as quick as possible. So are there any questions about any of that? Are people raising their hand, or are they going to type into the Q&A?
Yeah, they can do either. They can either type or put it in the Q&A. But the way, so our webinar is designed, so we'll open questions to the end. They can't speak until the panelists have finished.
Okay.
So we thank you for your part, and we will now go on to our next presenter, who is Lafero Ralph, who is with the United States Small Business Administration.
Okay, this is LD. I unmuted myself. Are y'all able to hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to be able to come on just to indicate where we stand right now with the Paycheck Protection Program and our economic injury disaster loans. It's been a tumultuous time rolling out the Paycheck Protection Program, because we were given such and I'm with the SBA, by the way. I'm the Deputy District Director of the Alabama District Office here in Birmingham. were given such a short lag time between when it was signed into law on Monday, and they were telling us to roll it out on that Friday. So, it's a Herculean task to try to come up with the rules and regs for administration of the law, especially an 800-page law, when it was signed Monday, and they told the borrowers they wanted them to go start making the application to the lenders on Friday. So the lenders actually didn't get their guidance until Thursday evening, sometime after 8 o'clock when it came out. I know the SBA was working around the clock to try to get it out. So it's working. It's working better. It's getting smoother. It was a rough start. We also had a lot of issues with lenders getting their access to SBA system, getting new lenders access to SBA system in order to do these loans. But headquarters has been set up a war room, and they've been adding team members to customer service call lines to try to address the issues for the lenders to do these loans. But it's up and rolling. We're going to have to. The issue may be finding a lender that wants to participate now. I mean, the vast majority of banks in Alabama are eligible to do these loans and have the authority to do these loans if they so wish. But the thing to keep in mind is that the SBA, we can't force the lenders to do these loans. We make it an option for them to do these paycheck protection loans, but it'll be up to the individual lenders on if they want to participate, and also if they want to take on new customers. We've had some information that some banks have told their customers that they're not going to participate. Other banks started and then stopped when the volume got too much. And there are some banks that are saying they're not taking on a new customer. You have to be an existing customer. But there are also banks out there, and especially in our community banks, more so than our large ones, that are willing to do these for their existing customers and also willing to look out for their community and do them for new customers within the community too. I've had banks tell me that they're taking any and all. Now, we don't have a database yet of the lenders that are still choosing to participate. That would really be almost an impossible task to gather that information because of the number of lenders that we have across the state. So it would probably be most advantageous if you got a business that's looking for a lender to participate, just to call them directly and ask them if they're participating with the SBA's Paycheck Protection Program, and also are they willing to do them for new customers. That's going to be the quicker way for a potential borrower to find a lender that is doing these, because we don't have a database in the office. All we can tell somebody, if they're asking for lenders that are doing the program, if they're eligible to do it. The lenders are not notifying SBA specifically or necessarily if they are choosing not to participate. So that's why we don't have that information. I wish we had it. And we're working with the Alabama Bankers Association to try to gather some data from the lenders across the state that are still participating and that are also taking on new customers. But that'll be a process for us to be able to gather that data and distribute it around. So that's where we stand with the Paycheck Protection Program right now. But there are lenders in Alabama doing these. The volume is starting to pick up. We're solving the issues of lender access. It's like trying to eat an elephant. We got to do it one bite at a time, nibble around the edges here, and try to chip away as we get these additional lenders their access to the program. The other SBA program, so the Paycheck Protection Program is the guaranteed loan that the lenders make. The lenders make it, and the SBA guarantees it. And that can be a bank, can be a credit union, can be a farm lender. All of those are eligible to participate if they wish. That's a loan made through the bank with 100% SBA guarantee on the loan. Our economic injury disaster loan website is still up too, and that's a direct loan from SBA, where if the borrower goes to sba.gov/disaster, again, that's sba.gov/disaster, they can apply directly in that website for the economic injury disaster loan. And that loan has a component of it that is a $10,000 cash advance. That cash advance portion of the overall loan is forgivable on that side of it. And there is no requirement right now that your 1099 and your sole proprietors wait to apply for the economic injury disaster loan. That's available now for all small businesses, whether you're an LLC, partnership, corporation, sole proprietor, independent contractor. That's all available now. We will be waiting until I think April 10 is when they said it will roll out on the Paycheck Protection Loan through the banks for our independent contractors and 1099 people that earn 1099 income, sole proprietors and such as that. So that's kind of where we stand right now. It's headquarters of SBA is continually adding staffers, adding people from other offices of SBA to Office of Cap Access. to handle the volume of calls. They're making efforts to increase the pipeline size of the internet so that they can handle the additional volume. They're working around the clock trying to accomplish these things. So that's all I'll give as a report right now. I don't want to take up too much time.
Thank you very much. Now we have Scott Latham on, who is the CEO / president of the Alabama Bankers Association.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, good afternoon. And on behalf of the Alabama Bankers Association, thank you very much for allowing me to join. And Mr. Ralph, thank you for that presentation. I apologize for being late getting on the call, but I want to say that the guys at the SBA office here in Birmingham, represented by Mr. Ralph, are working day and night along with our banks to try and get this program up and running fully and get funds into the hands of small businesses across the state. So thank you for that. My message simply is this: we recognize as banks that there is a great demand out there. There are lots of needs. We appreciate and respect that. We are thankful to be able to have the opportunities every day to bank many of the small businesses and their employees from around the state who are on a day when we're not in the middle of a pandemic, or certainly in the middle of a medical crisis like this, who are coming in and out of our lobbies. So we are privileged to be a part of the equation here and a conduit to try and get those government funds into the hands of small businesses. I think, as was probably indicated just a few minutes ago, there have been some hiccups, as there always is. None of us knew we would be doing this 6 or 7 weeks ago. And so as much as we need the funds, there are certainly regs and procedures to be written. Certainly, we all understand how those can continue to change as we figure out things that do work and don't work. And so certainly the SBA office has been awaiting Treasury, in many cases, U.S. Treasury, to indicate what is and is not doable in the program, just like they waited on the Congress to pass the stimulus to begin with. So we are at times finding ourselves waiting for additional guidance from the federal agencies in order to know exactly how to do these loans. My message to small business owners is A, thank you for your patience. B, please don't give up on us. We recognize that our bank lobbies are certainly not accessible the way they normally are, due to certainly orders from health departments and concerns that we have for everyone's health. We recognize that drive-through lanes get backed up and you must sometimes have an appointment just to get into the bank. None of that is what we want. None of that is how we generally operate. So your patience is certainly appreciated with us as we go through this process. I would also add that banks have been awaiting guidance as to the particular forms that customers need to sign in terms of signing on the dotted line to get this money. We have just gotten some verification on that in a phone call which made me late for this call, from an SBA official in Little Rock, Arkansas, which has been very helpful to us. And I think once we get this information out in the next 30 minutes to our banks, I think it will enable some of them to go ahead and begin processing some of these loans more quickly now that we have this guidance. So my next message to small businesses are, certainly as you are reaching out to your banker, know that you will need to have certain types of information. And Mr. Ralph may have already covered that, but if you're a sole proprietorship, if you're a partnership, a corporation, you're going to need certainly documents that really substantiate the kind of business that you have, a license, articles of incorporation, things of that nature. You're also going to need copies of tax returns and copies of payroll records in order to substantiate, the money that you're needing. We want to get this money in your hands. At the same time, we've all got to abide by what the government says it needs in order to give us these funds, and then hopefully to forgive those funds if we use them, according to the stipulations there. So I have used the phrase "the ground continues to move under our feet" just a few times, because again, we're just like the lines that we're seeing at the grocery store, and sometimes, if I may use this analogy, just like the run on Charmin toilet paper, there are a lot of people headed toward the doors trying to get this as quickly as they can, and yet we're still waiting on some of the rules and some of the procedures to be outlined. So that's why I ask for as much patience as you can give us. I said on a WBRC Fox 6 interview about 6:45 last night that we completely sympathize and recognize with people who are without their jobs and who need this money, and small businesses who don't have it to give it to them in order to get them through the next 8 weeks. So, Chairman, I would just say that we are all in this together, and we are working as hard as we can day and night to get to where we need to be. I will tell you that we have had banks literally that have split 8-hour shifts. We have some banks that have been working third shift, literally all night, to get these things prepared to get uploaded. So, there are no longer any banker's hours anyway, it seems, but certainly we're working 24/7, and I know the SBA is as well. And so I'm happy to take any questions I can from that.
Thank you. Since our next speaker isn't here to join us yet, we are going to open it up for a few questions. And I did have one, either of the three of you can answer, but can you just elaborate a little bit more on like interest rates, the terms of the loans, and how your credit scores play into factor for these?
Well, as I can address the interest rate aspect of it on the paycheck, and this is LD with the Small Business Administration. The paycheck protection loans have an interest rate of 1%, which I know for the lenders is a very low interest rate. The lenders are getting fee income from the SBA for processing this loan, so that'll make up somewhat for the low interest rate that the SBA allows them to charge on it. But the thought is anyway that these loans are going to be forgiven if they're used for the appropriate loan proceeds, so that the interest rate is not really going to be the main factor for the bank to do the loan. It will be the fee income generated from SBA when the banks process the loans. So the paycheck protection loans have an interest rate of 1%. They have a 6-month interest only period before the borrower has to start paying back, but they are a 2-year term, which is very short. But again, it's the thought that these loans are going to be forgiven. So that's the point of having the 2-year term. There will be parameters in place. I'm sure we will get additional guidance, which is not out yet, for those loans where parts of the loan or maybe all of the loan, or there was something about it, the use of proceeds that was not able to be forgiven, where that 2-year term can be adjusted or reamortized by the lender. But that the servicing issues are secondary right now to the issues of getting the program up and running. So once the rollout, we get past this rollout, then the policies and procedures will be put into place for the lenders to service and do the request for the payment or the forgiveness on these loans. On the economic injury disaster loans, which is the direct loan from SBA, for a for-profit business, the interest rate is going to be 3.75%. For a private nonprofit, and churches are included in that, the interest rate will be 2.75%. Those loans will have a 20 to 30 year fixed rate term over that period, outside of the $10,000 advance portion of the economic injury disaster loan can be forgiven. There are also provisions in place on the paycheck protection loan that if a borrower receives an economic injury disaster loan, they can use the proceeds from the Paycheck Protection Loan to pay off the portion of the economic injury disaster loan that is not forgiven, and everything, in other words, everything else other than the $10,000 advance. There will be, as long as it's for the allowable use of proceeds, which is salary, rent, mortgage interest, utilities, things like that. So you can apply for both loans. It's not either or. And if you apply for the Paycheck Protection Loan, having received an economic injury disaster loan, you can pay off the portion of the economic injury disaster loan if it's the same use of proceeds with the proceeds from the Paycheck Protection Loan, which has a larger forgiveness provision. So you get the additional benefit of getting the larger amount of the loan forgiven there. So that's a long answer to a short question, but hopefully I addressed the question there.
Yes, thank you. One other question so far. What advice can you give me beyond SBA loans for helping my business survive until we can reopen?
What was the question? Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. What advice can you give me beyond SBA loans for helping my business survive until we can reopen?
The first thing is try to minimize all unneeded expenses and try to negotiate with any creditors that you have, any outstanding debt that you have, some leniency on payment terms. I have a lot of my clients speaking with their landlords, canceling, like a dentist office in particular, canceling their dumpster service, canceling their janitorial services because they're forced to be closed. They can't open. So right now, those services are not necessarily considered a necessity to them. So that helps add some cash flow or keep cash flow in the bank for any remaining revenue that they have left from when they were in service to try to float them for the next few months. So that's pretty much what you kind of try to do, or try to, if you can, repurpose to something that can be essential. I've been seeing around in different states where some people are turning some of their, some portion of their business into a little essential store where they're selling some hard to get items in their community. So in this time, you just got to kind of be a little creative in how you start generating revenue and think outside the box for this short period of time. And then once things kind of start to redevelop into some level of normalcy as far as, you reopening, and kind of try to get your feet back under you.
Yes, thanks. Another question from our chat. Can someone talk a little more about independent contractors, freelance workers, etc.?
Sure. In the context in which this applies for, and I think Mr. Ralph, he can probably piggyback on this, as far as the criteria for what they need to apply for this PPP loan has not been rolled out yet. So I can't give guidance on kind of what you would need, but the gentleman from the Banking Association, he kind of alluded to it, and we talked about this in another webinar that we had. Start gathering your documents now. So like he said, your articles of organization or incorporation, if you did do that, if you're an LLC, a copy of your business license, a copy of your tax return, your most recent tax return, a copy of your most recent financial statements at the minimum last year, a copy of your 1099s and 1096. Just start getting all of that supporting documents together so that therefore you can start getting everything together so that way when the bank asks for it, you can have it.
This is LD. I'd kind of piggyback on probably some of the question is for someone who's self-employed or an independent contractor is the salary language or the wages payroll language that's present in the law might be a little bit confusing, that even though they are eligible, they aren't what you typically call wage earners or payroll employees. But, for a sole proprietor or an independent contractor, some of the things that you can look at for their income would be their wages, their commissions, or their net earnings from self-employment, which would generally be, you know, reported on a tax return. And it's going to be asking for like an average monthly wage. Well, if you look at your last tax return and take your net income from self-employment, like if you file a Schedule C, you'd have to take that and divide it by 12 to determine what your average. If you haven't taken a draw yourself or paid yourself wages through the year, if you're just living off the income of the business, and you report it on a Schedule C as net income at the end of the year, take that and divide it by 12, and that's going to be your salary portion, that would be the figure you would use for calculating salary when calculating, you know, how much you're eligible to borrow on these paycheck protection loans.
It looks like Senator Smitherman, you have your hand up for a question. All right, looks like he's having a few mic issues, so we'll come back. The question was, are they excluding depreciation from self-employment earnings? Are they excluding depreciation from self-employment earnings?
We are still trying to get guidance on that one particular question, because that has come up. Are they able to add back those non-cash expenses that are deducted from net income to come up with that salary figure? So I wish I could give you an answer, but we don't have the clear guidance on that yet from headquarters.
Thank you. And now our final speaker has joined us, so we will give her the floor at this time. So we'll turn it over to Dr. Teresa Orok from Alabama A&M University.
Okay. Hi, and good afternoon to each of you. I'm sorry for the lateness. I was on with the Mobile group. We're all in the same boat here, talking about opportunities for moving ahead. And I know that it has been said that this is certainly an uncertain period in which we find ourselves. But I think that also it is an opportunity for us to begin to look ahead and to begin to do things differently. I know that my colleague and friend from SBA has given you tremendous information on how to access the opportunities that lie before us. I want to say that having worked with small businesses for a very long time across the state of Georgia and now across the state of Alabama, that I think that this opportunity that is coming from the federal government represents a very unique privilege for our small businesses. Many of you, of course, have had to close your doors. Many of you may be on the verge of closing your doors. And what we want to do across the state of Alabama is to prevent that from happening. So I do applaud the U.S. Small Business Administration, the district office, the regional offices, SDVCs, SBDCs, and all of the universities and entities that have come together to try to support this particular cause.
Sorry, there's difficult on, and obviously Dr. Merriweather on another call, because we're trying to this. So please share with us what this at. Thank you.
Okay, are you hearing me?
Yes, ma'am, we hear you now.
Okay, good. All right. Did you hear my opening statement, or do I need to start again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you can proceed from where you left off.
Okay, good. Okay, just a second here. It looks like I'm still on the Mobile call, so just a second here. Okay. I need to leave you just a second here and shut off from the mobile call.
Okay, then we can open it up for one other question while we wait. Representative Rogers, you had a question. Let me try to unmute your mic. Representative Rogers, can you hear us? All right, it looks like he's having mic issues as well. Do we have any other questions at this time? Leslie, can we open it up to questions?
I have one.
Yes.
Trevor. As it relates to the employee-employer relationship, as far as the employers who are on their payroll, how does the self-employment earnings apply with them?
LD or Mr. Latham, do you have a response to that?
How does, I was trying to understand the question. Can you ask it again one more time? I'm not sure I understood what the question was.
Yes, so a lot of my clients, they are actually on the payroll, but they're also owners. So they also take distributions. So as a tax strategy to help save on taxes.
Right.
But I did notice on a lot of the spreadsheets that I completed, it did ask for the self-employment earnings, but I wasn't sure if that's included in the forgivable payout amount or not.
Yeah, the self, as far as I understand it, would be, whatever they paid in wages, whether it's to an employee or to themselves, but also what the self-employment earnings are can be included in that payroll calculation, and that should be the forgivable portion of the loan.
Okay, because it didn't necessarily say that the owner distributions were, so that's why I thought I would just ask, because I had
I'm looking at some of the guidance printed out here just on what constitutes payroll costs. Let's see, I talked about for the sole proprietor or independent contractor, we said wages, commissions, income, or the net earnings from self-employment. Let's see, payroll costs including benefits, employee benefits including costs for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, allowance for separation or dismissal, payments required for the provisions of group health and care benefits, state and local taxes assessed on compensation. All of those are on the guidance I have of what can be counted as payroll costs. Now that payroll cost is what is used to calculate the loan amount. However, as far as the use of proceeds of the loan, you can use it to pay payroll costs, interest on mortgage obligations, rent, or utilities. So your loan size is determined by that payroll calculation, but what you can use the proceeds for is for payroll costs, interest on mortgage obligations, rent, and utilities for the business.
So, and I guess that portion of that language is what's been stumping a lot of people in our community as far as the accountants.
Yeah, you don't count those other expenses.
Yes,
like the mortgage as the overall loan size. The loan itself is based on the payroll portion, but the use of proceeds, once you get the loan, you can use that loan for those other costs, and those costs, using it for those are forgivable costs, uses of the loan proceeds also.
Okay, so I did there was a calculation that one bank sent me that if it didn't meet a certain threshold, that a portion of it is repaid. How is that threshold being determined?
Let's see. Said how much of the loan will be forgiven. You will owe money when your loan is due if you use the loan amount for anything other than payroll costs, mortgage interest, rent, and utility payments over the 8 weeks after getting the loan. So if you use the loan proceeds for any other cost other than those, if you that portion of the loan that's used for any other costs other than payroll, mortgage, interest, rent, or utilities, that's not forgivable.
Okay, so let me see if I can reframe the question. So this is the example that has been presented to us, and I'm still even waiting clarity from that bank. is that the loan amount that they say that they qualify for hypothetically is $50,000.
Right.
Then when we get down to the bottom of their spreadsheet, it says the language is that this amount is not greater. So payroll costs for the 8 weeks is not greater than 75% of the loan amount. So the difference of the payroll for the 8 weeks and the calculation as it relates to the rent and the utilities, that difference of the loan amount and that amount, there's a difference of about $6,000, and they're saying
Right.
that $6,000 has to be repaid. That portion is not forgiven. So I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, we're getting in some of the weeds on the interpretation of it now, because I'd be speaking out of turn if I tried to
Okay.
address that any more than what I told you. I'm just going from the information that's been sent out to us on there. I wish I could give you a better description, but
Okay.
yeah, we're still waiting on guidance on some of it.
Okay, that's what I kind of thought.
This is Representative Coleman. Can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
I have 3 questions I see that have popped up. Someone asked a question, this was John Rogers' question, about the first phase. Does it cover barbers and beauticians who rent out booths? That's number 1. The second was from an anonymous attendee that wanted to know about the credit score. That wasn't answered. And then finally, I got a text message from a brand new attorney that just passed the bar last year and wanted to know how if there's only several months of last year, how are they to benefit from this particular these 2 particular programs? So those are the 3 questions. Barber shops and barbers and beauticians that rent out booths, credit score, and then for brand new attorneys that only were in, or any company actually that was in business only for the last few months of last year.
Well, as far as the eligibility of the barber shops and beauticians that rent booths, they're going to be in the group of the independent contractors that are eligible to start applying on April 10. So those are eligible businesses. Sole proprietors, self-employed people, 1099 independent contractors are eligible to apply. They roll on to be able to apply on April 10.
Okay,
As far as a credit score issue, we haven't seen anything. There's been nothing in the guidance I've received in the Treasury documents that references anything about a credit score analysis, because I know on these paycheck protection programs, they are being made without a requirement for collateral and without a requirement for a guarantor. So that may be why we're not seeing language about credit scores in what we have seen, what I have seen.
Okay, and then for brand new businesses, that was the last question.
I don't have a definitive answer on that. It's looking to cover your average monthly salary expense. So even on a shorter period of time, they would just have to try to calculate if they've been in business less than a year, what has been the average monthly salary expense for that, even though it's been less than a year.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like Dr. Orok has joined us back, so we'll give her this opportunity.
You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Thank you so very much. I was actually stretching this technology a little bit far. I didn't completely leave the meeting in Mobile, so I was talking to you in Jefferson County and in Mobile, and so I got a little call to say, would you please hang up? So that is what I did. So again, I just want to thank you all for this opportunity. I know that this is a challenging time, especially for our small and disadvantaged businesses. I certainly want to thank those of you who have convened this convergence today, to the state representatives and to our legislators and all of our policymakers, and to those of you who are seeking information. This is something that neither of us had on our bucket list. But it has come to our door, and so we have to try to address it. I do appreciate and respect the responses that my colleague Mr. L.D. Raff from SBA has just given to you. I want to say that this is an agency that you can rely upon as you go through this process. I am listening to your questions and some of the questions that are being posed from, of course, the Huntsville area. I was on with those people last week, and we'll be back on with them tomorrow. And of course, just exiting from the Mobile group. All of your questions are the same. And Mr. Raff, I know that you have talked about, how to access this. I think that that's where a lot of uncertainty and maybe challenges are coming from for our small businesses as they go online and try to access the application and try to submit the application. I'm sure that you talked about, the importance of our small businesses maintaining a relationship with those financial institutions with which they are doing business with. As I read the guidelines, it is possible to do business outside of your normal financial institution, but that does require, some negotiation and of course, getting into that particular financial institutions, platform and everything. So what I want to say to you is, is to follow the guidelines, make sure that you're doing exactly what is being required. The opportunities are there. We are certainly here to support you from Alabama A&M University, from the university, from the College of Business, and from the center for which I lead, the Center for Entrepreneurship, Innovation, and Economic Development. We want all of our small businesses to be successful. We understand that many of you have had to close your doors, not necessarily because of the shelter in place, but because you do not have the resources to maintain your business. What I would like to see moving ahead is that we take time after this is over, representatives, state legislators and policymakers and key community folks to come together and strategize as to how we can really advance and scale our small businesses, how we can greater use technology in order to help our small businesses stay on the cutting edge, because many of you are not going to be, in your businesses to answer the telephone and those kinds of things. So we have to build a very strong technology platform that addresses our 21st century needs and addresses the way in which we do business now. I know that this has caught a lot of our small businesses off guard. We are just kind of, nestling and, trying to, get to the next level, the next day, the next hour. And I know that this is an opportunity for us to do this through the stimulus package. But in moving forward, again, I do want us to have more sustainable strategies on the table that would really help us as small and minority disadvantaged businesses, whatever you consider yourself as, in order that we might be able to withstand these kinds of challenges as they come, because I just believe that this is not going to be the only challenge that will come to our small businesses. So this is my take. I am available to assist you in whatever way I can to add, to the body of knowledge that has already been stated here. My email address is Teresa, Teresa, .orok at aamu.edu. Again, we are here to support you as a land grant institution. My president and dean and the whole administration is greatly concerned about economic development, not just within the Huntsville community, but economic development across the state of Alabama, because this is where our students come from, and our parents support our students, small businesses support our students, and it's very important for us to remain on the cutting edge, trying to do what we can do in order to advance and to stay afloat during this particular time. So I do challenge my mentors and my colleagues with the state legislature, with the SBA. Let's get together after this is over, or even before this is over, and let's begin to set some priorities for our small businesses, because when these kinds of things happen, then our small businesses, unfortunately, are the most adversely impacted, because of course we are doing heavy lifting, without much of the resources that are needed. We are still in our communities. We've been in our communities for a long time, and we just need to figure out how to make this work, and how to scale, how to ratchet up a notch, so that we can stay on the cutting edge. The other thing that I want to say is that I am so happy this came across my board on Sunday, just as a way from ASBA. I'm so glad now that there is emphasis, a greater emphasis placed on supporting our faith-based organizations. I know that many of our faith-based organizations really need support. And so, there is an opportunity for us to do that. Listen, I'm going to stop here. I'm sorry, I was on another call, and we'll be on this call tomorrow, I believe, Representative Daniels, with another group of people, or maybe that is something, another call, but I'm available. This is what I do as a part of the university's outreach initiatives. And am available to assist you. Again, my email address is Teresa, Teresa .orok@aamu.edu. If I can help you step through any of this process, please, this is why I'm here, to assist you. Thank you all so very much.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to take one last question from Representative Hollis. I'm unmuting your mic now.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
My question is first I want to say hello, everyone. My question I think would be for Trevor Small. And earlier, Trevor, you told the difference between the independent contractor and the employee. Okay, what I want to make sure that I understood correct, you said that for those independent contractors, they don't need to apply until April 10th?
Correct. That's when it opens up the application for them.
Okay. For independent, okay, let me ask you this too. So independent contractors that works in the office, that pays for desk space, etc., they can apply too.
You said independent contractors that pay for desk space?
See, I have a real estate company. And we have independent, our agents are known as independent contractors, which pays desk space, just like a beauty shop pays for their space.
Yes.
Yeah, so does our independent contractors.
Yes, so they should be able to qualify on April the 10th. We won't know exactly who all that covers until that criteria is fully rolled out. But as of right now, yes, they should be included.
Because we know that the business itself can, but we was also, agents was wondering also by them being independent contractors, and could they do the same?
Yes, as long as they have the documents that are required. Like I said, once we see what those.
Meaning their income statement?
Income statement, tax returns, if they ask for that, if they ask for a copy of a business license, a copy of articles. So it just depends. And right now it's all speculation because it's nothing concrete has been said. So everything that's being said as it relates to those contractors is speculation unless it comes from the SBA.
Okay, and it's my last, I guess it's a question statement, because really overall, and correct me if I'm wrong from all of you, I don't mind being corrected, really, this thing is not really ready.
Correct.
We're just, so what you're doing is really just taking applications and just taking it step by step.
Well, from my understanding, and this is solely off experience, not necessarily, but all of my clients who I've done this for, they fell in the category where they have more than one employee. So we've applied.
Okay.
None of my clients have received funding, but have definitely gotten all the information to their financial institution. Now,
Okay.
if they processed it or not, that has been remained to be seen to us. We don't know that information.
In is what you're saying.
That's exactly it. I'm going to urge anybody you talk to as it relates to anything surrounding any one of these SBA products or these bank products, tell them just to be patient. I know it's very difficult to do,
but
every day, every hour, something potentially changed from what it was yesterday.
I got you. Understood.
So, yeah,
so the main thing is making sure they get their applications in.
Right, making sure they get all those documents to get all the documentation they need together. So I did a webinar actually before I got on this one talking about the documents that are needed. And right, I told everybody that was on there, start if you're a beautician, barbershop, gardener, dog walker, freelancer, photographer, start gathering all your organizational documents that when you started your business that they gave you, as well as your tax return, as well as supporting docs to show how much money you have made is very important. If you do that now, that way you won't be spending days trying to get this information to your bank.
Got you. Understood. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So it's now, we've reached the hour mark. It's 2 p.m. So we'll take the absolutely final question from Representative Wandalyn Gavan. I'm unmuting your mic now.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Mr. Leader, for, again, another great conference call with regards to resources for the people of Alabama. In particular, I am really wanting to know, just to follow back on, I think, Ms. Merriweather and the gentleman who spoke before her. I guess I would like to know, what should we be doing with regards to getting the information out to the various small business owners here, especially in Jefferson County, and what mechanism are you all using to get the word out so they'll know what products are available through this particular loan, and then the next steps as it relates to the various dates and timelines that have already been intimated, because that's going to be critical. And I think Ms. Merriweather touched on something that was very important, in particular with regards to the faith-based community and the churches, various churches in and around the area or throughout the state of Alabama. So I would like to know if there have been any type of conversations with the faith-based community, number one. Then, of course, the tracking or involvement and participation from the various small business associations throughout the state as a mechanism of getting information to persons who have small businesses.
Okay.
Well, let me go first. This is LD with the SBA. As far as access to the information, it's very easy. If you direct your constituents and your customers, your clients, whoever it is that you come in contact with, just sba.gov. If they go to sba.gov, the very first thing that's going to pop up there is COVID disaster resources. And they can go from there and they can see the details of the Paycheck Protection Loan, and they can see the details of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. So it's a very easy, all of the information is there. They'll just have to navigate it at sba.gov on that side. I know I did have a call earlier last week with Dr. Orok, some of the faith-based community in North Alabama. Now, and they are eligible. This program, these loans, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Loan, are open for private nonprofits, but also for faith-based nonprofits, churches. Those are eligible entities to apply for that. Now, if it is a municipal nonprofit like a government co-op or an electric cooperative, sewer system, anything, if it's municipal, a public nonprofit, those are not eligible. It's got to be a private nonprofit.
Okay. And as it relates to, I know in our area, I've talked to a lot of faith-based organizations and trying to help them get clarity on this as well. And the SBA, they can probably help me clarify too. A lot of my faith-based organizations that have reached out to me are asking, does this cover their tithes and offerings?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the language I did not see in any language that I've read or any content that has come out the SBA or the SBDC. The way I read it was, if the service in which they're providing that's community driven, that they incur cost on, that is the portion in which these programs are giving them relief on.
Okay, I guess my point with regards to that, and we can talk about it later, many of these churches actually operate off their tithes and offerings. Those are typically their operating funds.
Yep. But the SBA, they may be able to speak a little bit more to it, but the language that I read, it did not specifically outline that.
The language for nonprofits, if the income that comes into the nonprofit, however it comes in,
okay,
if the income to the nonprofit has been impacted and reduced by the COVID disaster, they can apply.
Okay.
Is that for the PPP or the EIDL?
Either one.
Okay.
So income as it is defined by the code is what you're saying.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, panelists, for taking the time to be here with us. Thank you to the Jefferson County delegation for hosting this for their constituents. And we want to thank also the members who have joined us outside of the Jefferson County delegations, House and Senate. We appreciate you being here with us. And to address the question, anyone who has signed up for this webinar today, there will be a resource packet sent out to you once this meeting has adjourned. And if there are any more pressing questions, we do have an email set up, so you can send us an email at askhdc@gmail.com. It's on the screen for you right now. And we'll make sure to get your questions to the right people and to get an answer for you as soon as we can. So again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. That was a good call.